In this video, you will learn the incredible story of betrayal, which changed the life of the main character forever. A man who can see memories through a chip in his eyes returns home early and discovers a party his wife has thrown. One seemingly insignificant moment forces him to reconsider the past, and he discovers the shocking truth about her relationship with another man. How far will he go to find out the whole truth? And what will happen when the past begins to destroy his life? Watch to find out. Ivan returned home earlier than usual. Work at the factory ended 2 hours early due to an accident on the line, so he decided to use this opportunity to spend the evening with his wife, Olga. She always complained that he worked too much, so he hoped she would be happy to see him. But instead of a warm family evening, Ivan found a completely different picture. Music was blaring in their house. There were bottles of alcohol on the tables, and the living room was filled with strangers. Olga was sitting on the sofa next to their family friend Dmytro and laughed loudly at his, at first glance, ridiculous joke. Ivan stopped in the doorway, trying to assess the situation. Although it looked like a normal party, something made him wary. Olga's laughter was too loud, and her gaze directed at Dmytro seemed too warm. Ivan decided not to pretend that nothing had happened. He calmly entered the room, said hello, took a glass of water, and went to the bedroom, saying that he was tired. But instead of resting, he activated the memory chip in his eyes. The chip, designed to store memories, allowed viewing events that a person had seen before. Ivan wanted to review the moments when Olga and Dmytro were together. He plunged into his memories. There were shots of them together at family dinners, smiling at each other on walks, and even joking around in his presence. But now he noticed something he hadn't paid attention to before. How their eyes lingered on each other longer than necessary, how Olga unconsciously straightened her hair while looking at Dmytro. Ivan returned to reality with a heavy heart. His head was full of thoughts. He decided not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it's just a coincidence. But something inside told him it is worth digging deeper. The next step was the decision to talk to Olga. But will she be able to confess? And will he survive what he hears? Ivan could not get rid of his thoughts about what he saw in his memories. He decided to act directly. After dinner, when he and Olga were alone, he calmly but coldly said, "We have to talk." Olga looked up. Her face froze for a moment, but then she cracked a smile. "Of course, about what?" "About you and Dmitri." Ivan looked her straight in the eyes. Olga's facial expression changed dramatically. Her gaze darted to the side. "What do you mean?" "I looked through our memories," he answered, trying to remain calm. "And I saw how you two behave together. This doesn't seem like it should be between friends." Olga fell silent. She stared at the floor in silence for a few seconds, then sighed. "Okay, I'll tell the truth," she began, her voice shaky. We overslept once. It was a long time ago, and it meant nothing." Ivan froze, his heart beat faster. "Didn't mean anything?" he asked quietly. "It was a mistake," added Olga hastily. "I don't even know why it happened. It was once, and I swear it never happened again." The words seemed to crash against a wall in his head. He tried to understand if she was telling the truth, but something inside told him, this is only part of the story. If it was only once, then why do I see how you both behave like this? Ivan choked, but then added, "Intimately?" Olga did not answer, and this silence sounded louder than any words. Ivan knew that he had to go further to find out the whole truth. Memories and chips could tell much more than words. His next step will be to check Dmytro's memories. Ivan could not sleep that night. Olga's confession did not give him peace. Once, it didn't fit into his head. He decided to act. If Olga did not tell everything, perhaps the answer lies in Dmytro's memories. The next morning, Ivan went to see Dmytro. He did not warn about his visit, but simply rang the doorbell when he was at home. Dmytro, seeing Ivan at the door, was clearly surprised. "Oh, hello, Ivan. Did something happen?" Dmytro tried to portray friendliness. "Can we talk?" Ivan asked briefly, entering without an invitation. There was a mess in Dmitri's apartment, but Ivan did not notice it. His gaze was cold and directed directly at the owner. "I know about you and Olga," said Ivan without unnecessary preludes. Dmitri tried to pretend not to understand, but his face gave away everything. What are you talking about anyway?" "You don't have to lie," interrupted Ivan. "I am here to find out the truth, and I will do it, even if I have to request your memories through a chip." Dmitri stopped. He understood that Ivan was serious. "Ivan, it was only once, nothing serious." "It's a long time ago," he began, but Ivan stopped him. "No, I want to see for myself," he said firmly. The chip in their eyes had the function of sharing memories if the person allowed. Ivan requested access to Dmitro's memories. Dmitro hesitantly agreed, probably hoping that Ivan would believe his words. But the truth turned out to be worse than Ivan expected. Ivan saw scenes that caused him real rage. Olga and Dmitro were together not just once. In Dmitri's memories, there were moments when they spent time in Ivan's house. On the couch, in the kitchen, even in their bedroom. They laughed, kissed, made love, and this was repeated more than once. When Ivan came back to reality, his hands were shaking. He looked at Dmitri, who was standing in front of him, pale and confused. "You're a liar," Ivan whispered, but there was more anger in his voice than words. "Ivan, it was a mistake." Dmitro began to excuse himself, but Ivan came closer and grabbed him by the collar. "You will erase these memories," Ivan said through his teeth. "What?" Dmitro asked in surprise. "You will delete all these moments with her participation, or I'll make you do it." His voice was cold. Dmitro saw that Ivan was not kidding. He hesitated, but finally agreed. In a few minutes, memories of Olga were deleted from Dmitri's chip. "If I find out that you have kept anything, or if you ever get close to her again, I will kill you," said Ivan, leaving the apartment. This visit changed everything. Ivan returned home, but now he wanted to learn the truth from Olga as well, especially about whether his child is really his. Ivan returned home late in the evening. His heart was beating faster with the emotions that were raging inside. He could no longer look at Olga as before, but there was one more important point that needed to be clarified. When he entered the house, Olga met him in her usual warm tone, as if nothing had happened. "You are a long time. Is everything okay?" "We need to talk," answered Ivan briefly. Olga stopped and looked at him carefully. She understood that there was nothing to hide from Ivan. "About what?" she asked cautiously. Ivan sat opposite her. His gaze was cold and stern. "Our son?" he began. "Or is he really mine?" Olga shuddered as if these words were a blow to the stomach. "What kind of question?" "Of course yours," she answered quickly, but her voice gave off a hint of fear. "I want to know for sure," continued Ivan, "and there is only one way to check it." Olga understood what was being said. Chips allowed viewing even the most intimate moments. Ivan could see if protection was used during her connection with Dmitri. "You have no right to dig into my memories," shouted Olga sharply. "And you had no right to lie to me," he replied coldly. Ivan activated a request for Olga's memories, but instead of allowing access, she abruptly rose from her chair. "No," she said firmly, "I will not allow this." "Your no only confirms my suspicions," answered Ivan, standing up to meet him. Olga tried to convince him. "Ivan, I will delete these memories. You will never see them. Why do you need to know that? It won't change anything." "Delete?" Ivan gritted his teeth. "You seriously want to erase it instead of telling me the truth?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she was stubborn. "It was a long time ago, and it means nothing. Our child is yours. Believe me." Ivan fell silent. He realized that if she deleted those memories, he would never know the truth. But can he live with it? Ivan stood in the middle of the room looking at Olga. Her face was tense, but there was determination in her eyes. She made her choice, and he understood it. "I will delete these memories," said Olga in a firm voice. "You don't need to know that. It will only ruin everything." "It is already destroyed," answered Ivan. His voice was quiet but deep in pain. He saw how Olga activated the chip and began to delete those moments that could confirm or refute his suspicions. She didn't want him to know the truth. Ivan felt a weight pressing on his chest. It made him feel eerie to think that she had hidden something that was so important to their lives. In her actions, he saw not remorse, but fear of the truth. "Now that's all," said Olga, turning to him. "You won't see anything." Ivan was silent. He looked at her with a long, cold gaze, as if seeing her for the first time. His mind was confused, and his heart was broken. Ivan understood that now he had two ways. Either to live with this burden, constantly remembering and analyzing what was true and what was not, or to remove everything and leave it behind. He decided to choose the second. After activating his chip, He deleted all memories related to Olga and her confessions. He erased them with a heartache, but he knew it was the only way to get rid of this nightmare. After that, he packed his things. Olga tried to say something, but he stopped her. "I don't know who you are anymore, and I don't want to know. We are done." Ivan left the house, leaving Olga alone. She stood in the doorway, silently looking after him. Leaving the house, Ivan felt emptiness, but with it a certain relief. He got rid of a part of himself, but at the same time he left behind pain and betrayal. Now there was a new path before him, although he did not know where it would lead. One thing was clear. He would not return to his old life. After Ivan left home, he felt that his life had lost its meaning. His thoughts were confused, but at the same time, he understood that everything depends only on him. He decided to go to another city to start from scratch. Ivan settled in a small apartment on the outskirts. His days were filled with routine. He found a job in a car service where he could distract himself from his thoughts. But even here, amidst the sounds of metal and oil, he couldn't quite shake the sense of loss. One evening, after returning home after a hard day's work, he decided to review the remnants of his memories stored in the chip. These were the moments of his childhood, youth, meeting with friends. But everything that concerned Olga was empty. This void was now becoming part of his new reality. A few weeks later, when life began to gain some stability, Ivan happened to see a familiar man on the street. It was his old friend Petro. Peter was one of the few people Ivan trusted. "Ivan!" cried Peter happily, coming closer. "Is that you? Long time no see." Ivan tried to smile, but it didn't work. "Hello, Peter. Yes, it has been a long time." They sat down in the nearest coffee shop. Peter talked about his successes and asked about Ivan's life. But when the conversation turned to Olga, Ivan felt pain reawaken in him. "What happened to you? Why did you leave her?" Peter asked, trying to understand the situation. Ivan spoke briefly, but avoided details. He didn't want to plunge into that nightmare again, but Peter seemed to know more than he expected. "You know," Peter began, "I heard about this system with chips. Are you sure that everything you saw was true?" "What do you mean?" Ivan was wary. "There is a way to manipulate memories. It's illegal, but possible. Someone could change what you saw," explained Peter. These words put Ivan in a dead end. He wondered if Olga or even Dmitri could have influenced what he saw. Maybe there was more to this whole story than meets the eye? Ivan decided to find out. If Peter was right and his memories could be altered, that meant he left everything because of false information. But is he ready to disturb the peace that has just begun to settle again? Peter's words did not give Ivan peace. If memory manipulation is possible, that changes everything. Perhaps he made a decision without knowing the whole truth. But should we open old wounds? The next day, Ivan took a day off and decided to contact the memory chip specialists. At the service center, he carefully explained his situation without revealing too much detail. "We can check your chip for third-party interference," explained the consultant. "It will take several hours." Ivan agreed and left the chip for analysis. As he waited, his anxiety grew. Are his memories really fake? And if so, who did it and why? By the evening, the results were ready. The consultant called Ivan to the office. "Your chip has been tampered with," said the man, looking at the documents. "Some memories have been altered or replaced." Ivan froze. His suspicions were confirmed. "Can you determine who did it?" he asked. "Unfortunately, we only see traces of software intervention, but we do not know who exactly did it. You need to contact the law enforcement authorities if you want to continue the investigation," the consultant replied. Ivan left the center with a heavy heart. He now knew that some of his memories had been tampered with. But he couldn't figure out who did it or why. Could it be Olga or Dmytro? Or maybe someone else entirely? Ivan decided to meet with Olga. He knew it was risky, but now he wanted answers. When he appeared on the doorstep of their former home, Olga was shocked. "Ivan, why are you here?" she asked, keeping her guard up. "I need the truth," he answered directly. "Foreign intervention was detected in my chip. Do you know about it?" Olga shuddered, but quickly pulled herself together. I don't know what you're talking about," she answered, her voice shaking. "Don't lie, Olga! If you're hiding something, say it now," he said, approaching her. She was silent for a few seconds and then said quietly, "Good. I didn't want you to know, but it's not me. This is Dmitri. He changed your memories because he was afraid you would do something terrible." Ivan heard this and felt his anger boil again. Ivan realized that he had been deceived and decided that this time he would not let it go without consequences. He had to meet with Dmitri and find out the whole truth, whatever it was. Ivan wasted no time. He went to Dmytro without warning about his visit. When he opened the door, his face contorted in surprise and fear. "Ivan, what are you doing here?" Dmytro asked, trying to portray innocence. "I know what you did," answered Ivan briefly, going inside, not even waiting for an invitation. Dmytro tried to defend himself. "I don't understand what you are talking about." "Don't you understand?" Ivan took a step towards him, and his voice became threatening. "You manipulated my memories. I know you did, and now I want to hear the truth." Dmytro began to speak nervously, avoiding direct gaze. "Ivan, you must understand. I was just trying to protect you. You shouldn't have known." "Protect? From what? From your lies? Because you slept with my wife?" Ivan grabbed Dmytro by the shirt. "You did not protect me. You defended yourself." Dmitri fell silent. Ivan did not retreat. After a long silence, Dmitri began to speak. "Yes, I changed your memories, but I only did it because I was afraid you would kill me if you found out the whole truth." "The whole truth?" Ivan tensed. "Speak." "It happened more than once," Dmytro admitted, lowering his head. "We met for several months. Olga said that you are always busy, and she felt lonely." Dmitri's words sounded like hammer blows. Ivan could feel the rage building up inside him. "You betrayed me not just as a friend," said Ivan, clenching his fists. "You destroyed my family, and you still dared to call it protection?" Dmytro retreated in fright, but Ivan grabbed him by the collar. "Now you will delete all your memories of her," said Ivan through his teeth. "Everything to the last. Otherwise, I will destroy you." Dmytro saw in his eyes that these were not empty words. He agreed. In a few minutes, all Dmytro's memories of Olga were erased. Ivan left Dmitri's apartment, but now his soul was filled with emptiness. He understood that revenge does not bring relief. He was alone again, and the truth he revealed only made the burden heavier. Ivan packed his things and left the city without warning or explanation. He did not leave notes, did not answer calls. Nothing kept him here anymore. All he had was a small suitcase and a desire to start life from scratch. He settled in a small town, far from everything that was familiar to him. No one there knew his name. No one asked questions. For Ivan, it was an ideal opportunity to hide from the past. His days became simple and predictable. He got a job in a workshop where he repaired cars. Working with his hands helped him to distract himself from his thoughts. He enjoyed the quiet and the lack of commitment. Sometimes when he came home after a long day, he would be overcome with melancholy. But he forced himself to move on. His memories of Olga and Dmitri now seemed like a ghost that he had removed, but the pain of loss remained. Once, while working in the workshop, Ivan met Olena, a woman who came to repair her old car. She was simple and sincere. Her smile was warm and her conversations were easy. Olena often returned to the workshop, sometimes for small repairs, sometimes just to talk. At first, Ivan kept his distance. He was afraid to trust someone again. But Elena had the ability to gradually melt away his defenses. She didn't ask about his past. She was just there, giving him a sense of peace. After a few months, Ivan began to allow himself to think about a new beginning. He invited Elena to coffee, and their conversation was light but deep. For the first time in a long time, he felt he could open up. "You look like a person who has been through a lot," she once said. "I passed," answered Ivan, "but now I want to leave it behind." Elena did not ask more. Her understanding was beyond words, and it became a real consolation for Ivan. Ivan began to build a relationship with Elena. He knew it would take a long time to fully heal, but now he had hope. The past left scars, but it no longer controlled his life. His new life wasn't perfect, but it was real. He learned to appreciate simple moments and people who brought him joy. And now, when he looked ahead, he saw not emptiness, but opportunity. Ivan and Elena began to spend more time together. Her openness and kindness helped him overcome the barriers he had built around his heart. But despite this, he could not completely get rid of the fear of betrayal. One evening, when they were sitting in a small cafe, Elena felt that Ivan was distant. She decided to ask a direct question. "Ivan, what worries you?" He thought for a moment and then admitted, "I'm afraid to trust again. The past has left traces in me that are difficult to erase." Elena listened to him carefully. Her answer was simple but profound. You shouldn't be in a hurry. Trust is something that is built over time, but you have to decide if you are willing to take the risk. Her words made Ivan think. He understood that only he himself decides whether he can open up again. However, life decided to test Ivan. A few weeks after their conversation, Elena started receiving phone calls late at night. Ivan noticed this, and his suspicions were awakened again. One evening, when she left the room to answer another call, Ivan could not stand it. "Who is this?" he asked when she returned. Elena looked surprised but not confused. "This is my brother. He is in a difficult situation now, and I am trying to help him." It was difficult for Ivan to believe her, but he saw sincerity in her eyes. She suggested, "If you want, I can let you talk to him. I have nothing to hide." The gesture broke something in him. He realized that his fear betrayed him more than the people around him. "No, it is not necessary," he answered. "I'm sorry that I doubted." This moment became a turning point. Ivan realized that he could not let his past control him. He began to work on his fear, opening himself up to new relationships and a new life. At the same time, Olena stayed by his side, supporting him without pressure. Her patience and understanding became the foundation on which Ivan began to build his new life. Ivan decided that he wanted to be with Elena, but this time he wanted to start things right, honestly and openly. He invited her for a walk and told her more about his past. Elena listened to him without judgment, only with sympathy. This was the first step towards their real future together. After that sincere conversation on the walk, Ivan felt a heavy burden lifted from his shoulders. He began to realize that he no longer wanted to remain a prisoner of the past. Elena became for him a symbol of a new page in life, and he decided to do everything possible to build a healthy relationship with her. Ivan understood that the fear of betrayal can destroy even the best relationships. He began to look for ways to work on himself. He spent his free time reading books on psychology and trust, and also saw a therapist to gain a deeper understanding of his emotions. During one of the consultations, the therapist said, "Your mistrust is a defense mechanism, but if you want to build new relationships, you need to learn to take risks. People make mistakes, but not everyone wants to betray you." These words were etched in his memory. Ivan understood that trust is a choice, and he has the right to accept it. A few weeks after their conversation, Ivan invited Elena to dinner. He wanted to make this evening special, to express his feelings and the seriousness of his intentions. The dinner was cozy, and Elena felt that Ivan wanted to say something important. Finally, he gathered his thoughts. "Elena, for a long time I was afraid to let someone into my life, but now I understand that I want to be with you. For me, you are the light that helped me escape from the darkness." Elena smiled, and her eyes glistened with tears of joy. "Ivan, I'm near, and I will be there for as long as you need," she answered. When Ivan began to feel happy, the past suddenly reminded of itself. One day he received a message from Olga. It was short. "I need your help." Ivan looked at the screen for a long time, his heart filled with mixed emotions. What does she want after everything that happened? Should she answer? He showed the message to Elena. "What do you think about it?" he asked. "I don't know what happened between you two, but if you want to put this behind you, you have to decide if you need it now," she said. "But I believe in you, no matter what you decide." Ivan thought. He will have to face the past once again to finally put an end to it. Ivan hesitated for a long time, but in the end decided to meet with Olga. He knew it might stir up old wounds, but at the same time, he wanted to close that page forever. They agreed to meet in a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. When Olga entered, Ivan noticed that she had changed. Her face looked tired and her eyes were full of pity. She sat opposite and, without looking up, began to speak. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I understand that after everything that happened, you have every right to hate me." "What do you want, Olga?" Ivan asked without emotion. "I need your help," she answered. "Our son, he wants to meet you." These words hit Ivan like a thunderbolt. He hadn't seen his son since he left home and even tried to forget about it to save himself from the pain. "Why?" he asked sharply. "He misses you," said Olga. "And he does not know the whole truth. I couldn't tell him why you left." Ivan was silent. His heart was breaking. He wanted to put everything in the past, but at the same time he knew he couldn't ignore his own child. "Why did you decide to say this now?" he asked, looking into her eyes. "Because I can see how it hurts him," replied Olga. "He is not to blame for our mistakes." Ivan thought, is he ready to let a piece of the past into his new life again? Returning home, Ivan told Elena about the conversation with Olga. "I don't know if I should do it," he said. "I'm afraid that it will destroy everything again." Elena looked at him warmly. "This is your decision. But remember, the child is not to blame for what happened between you. If you want to meet him, do it. I'll be there if you need me." These words helped Ivan to make a decision. He agreed to meet his son, but did not want to do it together with Olga. He asked to organize a meeting on neutral territory. The day of the meeting has come. Ivan was nervous, but when he saw his son, who approached him with a smile, everything changed. In those eyes, he saw hope, innocence, and a piece of himself. "Dad," said the boy, hugging him. Ivan felt something move inside him. He realized that despite all the difficulties, this meeting was the right one. Ivan was sitting with his son in the park where they agreed to meet. The boy, whose name was Maxim, looked at his father with interest and admiration. He was 8 years old, but he seemed remarkably mature for his age. "Why didn't you come for so long, Dad?" asked Maxim, looking at Ivan. This question made Ivan feel a heaviness in his chest. He chose his words carefully. "Maxim, sometimes adults make mistakes, and this separates them. But it never means that they stop loving," answered Ivan, trying to speak as simply as possible. Maxim nodded, but it was clear in his eyes that he wanted more answers. Ivan decided to make the day special. They rode bicycles together, went to a cafe for ice cream, and even played football. Maxim laughed and looked happy, and Ivan felt like the father the boy always needed. At the end of the day, Maxim said, "Will you come again? I felt so good today." Ivan stopped. He understood that he no longer wanted to be absent from his son's life. "Yes, Maxim, I promise we will see each other more often," he answered, hugging the boy. After returning home, Ivan shared his impressions with Elena. "I see myself in him," he said. "I can't let him grow up without his father." Elena listened to him with understanding. "This is the right decision," she said. "But you have to set your boundaries with Olga. Your relationship with your son should not depend on her." Ivan agreed. He realized that he wanted to be a father, but he would never allow Olga to manipulate him again. A few weeks later, Olga turned to Ivan again. This time, she wanted to talk about Maxim. "Ivan, I see that you are trying to establish a connection with your son," she said. "But I think that he should know the whole truth." "What is the truth?" Ivan was wary. Olga sighed and said, "Do you remember your suspicions? Yes, Maxim is truly yours, but Dmitri tried to make me lie about it to keep you at a distance." This confession struck Ivan. He understood that Olga was trying to justify her mistakes, but it only emphasized how much manipulation there was in their past. Ivan no longer wanted to return to his old ways. "It doesn't matter anymore," he said coldly. "Maxim is my son, and I will be by his side, but everything is over between us." Olga agreed. She realized that she had lost him forever. Ivan continued to build relationships with his son and Elena. His past remained only a shadow that no longer ruled his life. Ivan's relationship with his son Maxim became stronger and stronger. They saw each other every week. They walked in parks, discussed books, and sometimes just sat together at home and watched movies. Maxim began to trust his father, and this was the most valuable thing for Ivan. One day, Maxim said something that finally convinced Ivan that he was moving in the right direction. "Dad, I'm so glad you're back. I always dreamed of having you by my side." These words became a new motivation for Ivan. He understood that his place was in his son's life, and now nothing could separate them. However, the past made itself felt again. Dmytro, who disappeared from their lives after everything, suddenly started sending messages to Ivan. He tried to justify his actions in them. "We all make mistakes. You must understand that I did not want to betray you." Ivan ignored these messages, but they made him feel uncomfortable. He realized that he could not completely close this chapter until he had spoken to Dmytro one last time. Ivan met Dmytro in the same cafe where he once talked to Olga. Dmytro looked depressed, but tried to maintain an appearance of confidence. "Why do you want to talk to me?" Ivan asked coldly. "I want to apologize," Dmytro said. "I know I ruined your life, and it's wrong." Ivan looked at him carefully, trying to understand whether this was sincere remorse or another attempt at manipulation. Apologizing won't change anything, he replied. But if you really want to do something, stay away from me, Olga and Maxim. Dmitri nodded. He realized that he no longer had the right to interfere in their lives. After this conversation, Ivan felt relieved. The past no longer had power over him. He could finally concentrate on his new life with Maxim and Elena. One evening, Ivan invited Elena to a restaurant for dinner. He was ready to take a step forward in their relationship. After a few toasts and casual conversation, he decided.
Elena, you were by my side when I was at my worst. You gave me faith in myself. I want us to be together not only now, but always.
Elena smiled and answered without hesitation. I want that too, Ivan. It was the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, no longer overshadowed by the ghosts of the past. Ivan and Elena began to live together. Their relationship became stronger and stronger. Elena understood the fact that Ivan spent a lot of time with Maxim and even joined their joint weekends. She gradually became a part of their family, and Maxim accepted her warmth. Do you love Elena? Maxim once asked when they were walking. Ivan smiled and answered. Yes, Maxim, she is special. She is good. I like her, said Maxim. Will you be happy with her? This question moved Ivan. He understood that his son was worried about him. Yes, and I want us all to be happy together, he said, hugging his son. After the last conversation, Dmytro did not appear in their lives anymore. Ivan found out that he moved to another city, started a new life, and even left Olga in the past. It finally closed a chapter that had caused so much pain. Olga also no longer tried to influence Ivan. She understood that he was moving on, and now her main goal was to provide her son with a stable life. She even thanked Ivan for finding the strength to return to Maxim's life. A few months later, Ivan decided to make an unexpected proposal to Maxim. One evening, when they were playing a board game, Ivan said, Maxim, what do you think about spending more time with me? Maxim looked at him in surprise. What do you mean? I want you to live with me and Elena, explained Ivan. I want to be near you every day. Maxim smiled and sincerely answered, I really want it, Dad. This decision required a discussion with Olga, but to his surprise, she agreed. She understood that it was important for Maxim to be closer to his father. After Maxim moved in with them, the lives of Ivan, Elena, and the boy became even more harmonious. Their house was filled with laughter and warmth. Together they became a real family that supported each other. One day, while walking with Elena and Maxim, Ivan stopped and looked thoughtfully at the horizon. What are you thinking about? Asked Elena. I think about how far we've come, he said. Once I thought that I had lost everything, and now I have more than I could have imagined. Elena smiled and took his hand. The main thing is that you chose to go forward, she said. Ivan smiled, looking at Maxim, who was running ahead. He knew that there were still many challenges ahead, but now he was sure that with this family he would be able to handle anything.